here in the county. The 9 of us are all independent. We represent a cross-section of the county. We hope that we reach a consensus with regard to a final charter, but we're all free to speak our minds one way or the other. If 4 of us end up opposing the charter that's presented to the commissioners, those 4 would be free to express those views to the citizenry, just as the other 5 could express their views as to why it's a good idea. Tonight, one of our guest speakers is going to be C.T. Wilson, who is one of the delegates in Annapolis, here from Charles County, and we've asked him to come in and share with us what views he might have on how we can make the government here, the local government, better. And I guess, CT, I'd like to start off just with that general question is, not to throw too much of a softball out there, but what do you think would, what are your views with regard to what would be an improvement in the county government? And I'm going to move this microphone over just a little bit.
Well, first of all, thank you, everybody, for having me. To answer your question, I guess kind of a general vague question, but we're talking about the type of governance we have, and I think that establishing a charter, depending on how we establish it, and a charter form of government could actually, move the county forward into this next century. I think it could be very beneficial to the entire county, the citizenry therein. And again, I know that's why you guys are here to develop the specifics of the charter. And I think it's, I think it's a good idea to at least explore, try to come up with the best ideas, and present them to the citizens so they can take that vote in 2014. I do believe that that we could actually come up with a very good product, and that you guys could actually, form something that would, last for centuries and again benefit our citizens. And that's why I'm here, just to give my input.
Okay. One of the subjects that we've talked about is term limits, and obviously what we decide to do won't affect how many terms you can have as a delegate. But what thoughts could you share with us on whether or not you think term limits would be appropriate for both council members and potentially a county exec?
And I'll say that I think for council, excuse me, just trying to keep my thoughts. First of all, term limits, it always sounds like a phenomenal idea, but being in office, I do realize that there is something to be said for some historical knowledge. Some projects takes a lot longer than others, so I do understand why some people, once they've actually experienced some form of governance, understand that term limits don't always work. Over on a local level, I do believe that if you did a 2-term limit, 2 full terms, but with the option to run again after you set out a term, I think that would be acceptable for the council, or just a 3-term limit, flat out. Move on, move up. I'm fine with that. At the end of the day, yes, you do need to have new people in. And I think with the county executive, I'm fine with it, just a 2-term flat limit. Very powerful position, one individual, I'm fine with that. Again, not to give a convoluted answer, but it also depends on how we form our government. If we have a mixed government with districts and at large, there may be an opportunity to say that if you run at large, you can only do it one time. Or if you run a district, you can only do it one time, and then you must run at large for 2 times. There's a multitude of ways to do it. But yes, in the end, I do believe in some kind of limitation to terms. To give you a very vague political answer, sorry.
Okay. Well, since you brought it up, with regard to a county council, one of the things we've talked about is whether or not council people should be elected at large or by district. And currently they're elected at large, but they're residential districts, which means they have to reside in one of the 4 districts, but they have to appeal to the voters countywide. Have you given any thought to what you think would be preferable and why?
Well, I tell you, obviously both by district and at large seem to have their benefits. As far as one of the largest benefits, especially as our county changes, is giving the minority party possibly a seat and a voice. Because depending on where you live, there's a strong number of Republicans in certain areas, and moving forward, they might not have a voice in government at all. So in all being fair, I think that if you do it by district, it does allow the possibility for some voice for all the parties. And in addition, we have what comes along the line of constituent services. Different parts of this county is vastly different, and the needs of Waldorf and the needs of Namjamoy versus the needs of Cobb Island. And so to ensure that these individuals, that their needs are met and their voices are heard, again, that's another obviously good idea about having voting by district, because it gives everybody that opportunity. However, at large, there's the other side of the coin is when you are running by district, you are running for your district. And it's very hard to find a cohesive and create a cohesive unit and actually get things done. And we get to see this at a larger level sometimes and on a national level when you have just people that are just re-election, their district. Because we're a county. And we have to survive and we have to thrive as a county. And sometimes that means that we have to find a way, we have to find that middle ground. And when you have the district only, you have these you can get single-minded individuals, that fringe mindset of I don't care, the answer is no. And it shouldn't be a no, it should be at least a no and then a but, followed by something else. And instead of being inhibitive. So that's another issue that you have when you have, that's created when you can do it by district. At large, again, it does, at large, the benefit of that is it kind of pushes everybody to the middle, at least when you run for office, because you got to kind of appeal to people in Waldorf, people in Cobb Island, the people throughout this county. So there's that benefit of you're getting more of a good cross-section of individuals running and hopefully being elected, because there's no extremes and fringe groups aren't really represented. Personally, I know it's a very difficult way of doing things, but if I'd had my druthers, I would rather see 4 districts and 3 at large, because you do need to get things done. I know people need a voice, and they need a voice, and the different areas need voices, but we also need to be able to keep things moving. And having the at-large seats requires that. It requires you. We got the people that are thinking about the county as a whole versus just their district. And within that, I know there are other methods of doing it, meaning you run one time for your district, second time you got to run at large. There are a multitude of ways of doing that. But if there's some mix that we could do that would allow the districts to be represented, but people to have enough at-large seats to keep the ball rolling, so we don't get caught up on minutia, and we can go forward and move on forward as a county.
Now, just when you talk about districts, are you talking about voting districts, or are you talking about residential districts?
I would assume it would be the districts you guys create.
Yes, but I mean,
districts. Did you have to live in the
representative
districts?
from the district be elected by only the citizens in that district? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry to be clear. If I didn't, is that you live in the district, you
Okay.
run in the district.
Okay.
Then you have 3 people that are at large.
Right.
So that way the individuals within those districts have a voice. However, we have enough voice for the county as a whole as well.
Right.
To clarify.
How would you answer the comment that, you're just creating more cost?
No, there's no question. Again, anytime there's change, there's going to be some cost, and what we have to do is find out at the end, is the bang worth the buck? And to me, if we can create a strong form of government where everybody has a voice, I believe so. Everything has a cost, but I know that the citizens that I talk to, they don't like being taxed, they don't like paying, but they are willing to pay for something if they're going to get something good, if they're going to get something out of it, if we're going to create a better form of government where they feel better represented. I think it's something that people will deal with.
Let me ask you, when you said, well, if we did it by district, perhaps we could give a minority a vote, referring to the Republican Party. How would you draw those districts to keep in mind that you're going to put a substantial majority of Republicans in one district? Is it?
I mean, it's geographically. You don't want to we don't need gerrymandering. We don't.
Leave the districts as they are?
We could very well do that as well. But whatever it is, it's not. Don't gerrymander. Make it as clean as possible. The courts aren't going to mess with whatever we do. But let's be fair.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. And I'm a Democrat. Ta-da. But at the end of the day, everybody needs a voice. So the best case scenario, obviously, is to just cut it, make it fair. And now, as we grow, obviously redistricting was going to have to occur, because what is Waldorf now, that's going to grow. our areas of growth are going to grow, and we're going to have to redistrict to find another way. There might be even a caveat where you say, okay, we have to tack on another 2 individuals because our county's too big. Because you do want constituent services for, especially for the individuals representing their specific districts, and you don't want somebody representing, 70,000 people, and everybody else is representing the rest. You want to make sure it's cut equally, but you just don't want it. You don't want to be overloaded. Because like Montgomery County, for instance, those folks who represent 200,000 people apiece. Yeah, that's hard work.
The way we have it now, is it by population?
Yeah, and so that's hard work, and really, that's where they're at now. I don't know how you do that. I know it's expensive. I know that you have to have a very large staff to deal with 200,000 people. That's larger than our entire county. So I think then that's another thing. Again, you guys are the subject matter experts. Just merely my opinion is that we might have to have a trigger in there because our county will grow. How it grows and where it grows, you can kind of predict that. So what are we going to do when there's another 50,000 people in Waldorf? Are we going to have the same number? Are we going to increase the number? We're just going to keep cutting them and dividing. Because when we start cutting, we also have to deal with the Title II of when you're cutting down, especially minority areas, and you're dividing them into that pie. Are you violating individuals' rights? These are all just issues we'll have. Obviously, when you have it represented by district, that you have to deal with. At large is a lot simpler. Obviously, it's straightforward. You pick a number, you run with it. Top 5, top 7, whatever the number is wins. It's simpler and it's probably more cost effective. But I think that it might not do what we're intending to do if we're going to try and create that pseudo-utopia form of government.
Okay. With regard to one of the things you mentioned was expense. As far as running by district, do you see that as being easier to enter into politics if we have districts?
Now,
was that your point?
Yeah, part of the point was because personally I was a neophyte to any kind of politics, and running at large as a neophyte is extraordinarily difficult, nay impossible. But sometimes you do want a new voice. Sometimes you don't want somebody who is beholden, owes or is tied and has you as a free thinker. I still consider myself one. And I think that by having some of those districts, and additionally, because you have the individual voices, that it allows for new blood to get in. You're not having to reach out to as many people within the district, and it does allow that. And again, this is where it gets complicated about, do you allow them to do it by district once and then at large after that? But I do believe it does create a window, or at least a door, at least a window for new individuals and new blood to come into our body politic.
When we have talked about it, as you know, in the county right now, the county president runs countywide and runs for that specific office. In a county council, do you think that the president of the county council should be running specifically for that office, or is that something where the president should be appointed by the council? You think it should, and should that person be someone who runs at large or from a district, or it's up to the council?
I would say honestly that the way I envision it, obviously the county exec would run at large. I think the entire council would run, you have the 4 and 3, everybody do their thing, and then when you get in, I think the council should be the ones to elect their president. I do believe it should rotate, every year. I'm fine with that it should rotate from one individual to the next to give a little bit of variety. And I think to me that they should be the ones. I don't think you should run for president of the county council. We've got a county executive. I think the county council, they're the ones leading that council, working with the county executive. I think they should be the one elected by that council.
Were there other comments that you wanted to make before we just went around the table?
Yeah, but I don't. It's not really my bad. But because I know we have to. There's obviously we covered term limits, and I think law enforcement. I know that's something that actually falls squarely on our shoulders, and I believe that if I don't want anything to be inhibitive of us moving forward, and if now isn't deemed the time to change from our sheriff to our police to a police force, that's fine. I think that that's not an overall requirement. It might be a goal, but if we're trying to move our county forward and we're trying to get people on board, you do come to the middle, and you don't want to have something that's definitely a bright line in the sand. And to me, I do believe that changing from a sheriff to a police department for some people is a bright line in the sand. Now, some people it's a motivating factor. But those people will probably go along with it even if we don't do that at this point, because there's always that opportunity. And I believe that if asked, I know that the delegates now and the senator will put the bill through to give permission for this county, because I know we have to do it and we have to change the law. We would put a bill through so we can make that choice ourselves.
So can I just play devil's advocate?
Please.
And ask a follow-up question? You've been in for 3 years. The current group's been in for 3. Why haven't you put something forward?
Because the last time we spoke, they said if this process moves forward,
Who's they?
As
the commissioners or the delegation?
the delegation, they felt it was premature until this process was moving forward.
That it was premature that a charter move?
No,
the
that we get a police department
Right.
until the charter moved forward. I know we could do it we could have done it at any time.
Okay, I thought what I heard you say is that you were prepared that you yourself, I don't want
Sure.
you to speak for the rest of
Of
us.
course.
But let's assume that the delegation is ready to go. We don't know what's going to happen with the charter.
Sure.
I mean, our charge is to write a charter, present it to the commissioners. Commissioners, I guess, move it forward, but the voters might vote it down.
Sure.
But if you feel strongly about that, wouldn't you at least bring forward the legislation to the commissioners in the package?
I don't feel strongly about that.
Oh, okay.
Law
Oh, okay.
enforcement. That was kind of my point. That that's
totally
not
misunderstood.
a breaker. Oh, I'm sorry. Wow, I'm doing a bad job today.
No.
Because
I
my
thought
thing is,
you
that's
were
not a make or break
for
thing.
I thought you were. I thought what you were saying is that you believe that we should move. You didn't want anything inhibiting the ability for the county to move forward to a police department.
No, I said I didn't want anything to inhibit the county moving forward on a charter form of government.
Oh,
And the police department or
Yeah.
sheriff's
Could be one of those things that
should
could be
not be a
inhibited.
make or break. And I know for some
Okay.
people it is.
Okay.
And so to move together as a cohesive unit, that's not something we might not need to deal with right now, because we can always do it. Maybe we get the sheriff on board. When we get everybody on board, I think that'd be better. I'm just
Okay.
trying to take some of the hindrances and hurdles out of the way.
Yeah.
great. Thanks for clarifying.
Doing bad. I'm sorry.
No. It's me.
No, we all understood, man.
It's just-
I got a question. In your opinion, as a Charles County citizen, do you think that if we propose police department with the charter board, it's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people in here?
I think that it'll be a line in the sand. A lot is I don't know if it's a lot. I just know that that's something some people feel strongly about. There are enough people that are ready to hear about what the charter government has to offer, but they're very pro law enforcement, and they feel that if we split up the sheriff right now and we regulate the sheriff to basically the role of watching the courthouse and the jail and at best serving warrants, that we're detracting from his power, and then we're giving too much power to the county exec, who's going to appoint the police chief. It becomes very complicated, especially for those that are really behind the sheriff. And if he doesn't get on board, and he's saying no because I'm going to lose power, we're not moving forward. I believe that'll be a deal breaker. I personally believe that'll be a deal breaker. Do I believe it's a bad idea personally? No. I think at some point we need to move to that point. But the option is there. It doesn't have to be now. And I kind of want this process to move forward successfully. Also, I know we didn't talk about part-time or full-time, but I'm a big fan of a part-time legislator. I think it's very good to be able to deal with the laws that you create. Now, we talk about pay. I'm not going to, put down a number, but you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. And sometimes, depending on you're not going to attract the best and the brightest if this job is actually inhibiting them from living. And I know a lot of professions. I talked to a young man yesterday. He's like, I'm going to go for school board because I can't afford to be a commissioner, because he can't work his job and be a commissioner. And he's a very bright young man, so combat veteran, those kind of things. So those are the things that we have to take in consideration. But I still do enjoy the part-time, because it's like you're just a regular person. You're not. I think after a while, if you do something all the time, you forget what's out there because you're only dealing with what's in here. So I believe part-time is fine. The pay just got to be commensurate to what we're doing, to what we expect of them, and ensure that if we want the best and the brightest. And again, this is something I know nobody wants to raise. I would never sit here and say, as an elected official, we should raise an elected official's salary. That's a horrible thing to say because it'll be all over the paper. But what I will say is, you get what you pay for, and we need to just keep that, be very mindful, not of where we are, but where we plan on being, and who do we want to take us there.
Well, is that true for the state reps currently and the commissioners, that we get what we pay for?
No, you get more than that. I was going to say no. You guys have a heck of a bargain going for you right now. But, to attract individuals and continue to attract qualified individuals, I think, or at least have something written in, and I think they have it now, where the pay is reviewed every so often so we can keep up with the cost of living, which, as we know in this area, is extraordinary.
One of the things that everybody's read about in the paper has been headlines over the last few months is the problems in Detroit, Illinois, and other jurisdictions where their governments are in such debt that they can't bail. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to bail themselves out. They might declare bankruptcy, or it's not really clear what's going to happen. What, if anything, do you think the charter should do to address that issue?
Well, I think that the way I would envision it, and again, you guys are the subject matter experts, but I would envision a government where the county exec creates the budget that has to be approved by the council. They can take away, they can't really add. That requires that the council president work with the county exec in forming the budget. So if whatever they want in, they need to talk to him before the budget's, or her before the budget's formed. And then at some point, you also have to have a ceiling on your debt. You have to have a cap. You need to write that in. And again, I think that to control that, because unfortunately, you can go in and terrorize for 4 years and move, but we can't. So, you come in and we destroy and we ruin our credit rating. We're debt. And I also think that we need to have some way of, it's such an overused word, but man, it's possible. Transparency. So anybody can go online and see just how in debt we may be and why. And I know that's not, it's hard to do, but it's something I think that needs to be done, and it needs to be something that's just an online, updated at least yearly to know where we are and why we're there. I push for it. I'm talking about down to pay, car benefits, and so people just know what it is their dollars are doing. I think, and I know they can do it through the Freedom of Information Act, but that's not quite transparency. I'm sorry?
That's a hard way to do it.
That's a hard way to do it. And as a delegate, they do that to us every year. They send us a little letter, hey, somebody reviewed your such and such, they're trying to see, whatever. But I think that we could try to make it a little more transparent somehow, some way, so we know how in debt we are and which direction we're heading.
Okay. Any other general comments before we go around the table?
Budget veto. I do believe that we do need to check. If we're going to do this, do it right. There should be a veto power as well as a veto override power. So again, it forces them to work together, but it doesn't give any group that much power. Just the veto override, 60%, something of that nature, something that that's a little obviously more than a majority. But I think there should be a veto. I think appointments should also be approved, so everybody gets to take responsibility for these boards. And again, now that might be within reason, because I don't know how many appointments I'm talking about, because I've never been in that position. I don't know if I'm talking about 50 or 300. I have no idea. I keep seeing them in the paper. There's a lot of appointments, but I don't know at this point how that works. I would just imagine first, that we need to, as we move forward and we grow, that there needs to be that oversight. So whoever says yes, there better be another yes with it. Now that could just be by a simple majority. Approve the appointments by a simple majority. And I guess we should also talk about how you would execute it, because that seems to be a very difficult thing to do too. As far as, let's say we get a charter and let's say it's voted in, I guess part of your charter has to be how it would take effect. And again, it depends on if we're talking about, are we redistricting? There's a lot of things that might have to occur, but on the basic level, we probably. You don't want to wait. I think waiting to 2018 would be a mistake. I think maybe that 2 years after it was 2 years after the citizens voted in, you would have a county executive. That county executive, I think, should be the. Personally, I'm fine with him being the board president. I think whoever gets elected to, as the board of commissioner president, just for 2 years be the county exec. And I know it sounds kind of bland, but then the remaining 4 be a interim council. And then even if there's there's going to be 7, and then in the next election we actually have the election as we set it out in the charter. Meaning once they say yes, that we start moving towards that charter some way or another. We don't wait till 2018. And again, I know that's a difficult task for you guys, but I do believe that if they vote for it, they're going to expect to see something. And we can't just wait till the next election to give it to them. I think that's it. Oh, last, I'm sorry, because I'm a politician and a lawyer, I like to talk. The biggest thing that when I've talked to people at our gym, I talk to as many folks as I can at the gas station, whatever. Most folks don't care. But what they do care about is making sure that, they have a voice and, and the little things do matter. And that I'll be honest, they're scared. They want to avoid corruption. If all you got to do is read the paper and you look, and I know that there's no way you guys can write that in. I just know that that's the thing that most people, as soon as I talk about changing government, they're worried, is one person going to have too much power? Can one person sell off government land to their buddies for $1 an acre around a metro area? Just being facetious. And is there any checks and balances in that for selling of government land? Can that go? Does the council those are the things that we don't really think about. When it comes to the little nuances, that's what I think people are most worried about. They want to be properly represented and just make sure that people don't take advantage of us, take our money, do things like that nature, pay to play. And I know that's a difficult task for y'all. I don't know if you can write it in there. You can write, don't do it, but obviously that's not.
Don't be corrupt.
Don't steal.
Don't be corrupt. That's one of the requirements is you don't be corrupt, right? But I just know that that's the citizenry that I talk. That's just an automatic response, to changing our form of government. Or, because I think they're kind of comfortable now. Well, they know what this is. It's the devil you know, devil you don't know. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be the devil you don't know. And at some point, we have to realize that we're going to move forward. We're going to grow. And we're going to mature, and as a county, we need to be taking those steps. So,
Okay. One last point before we go around the table. One of the things we heard from Doug Duncan was that he thought that there was an advantage to having a county exec in terms of going to Annapolis. Would you say that's more? Is that a product of having a county exec, or is that a product of him being a county exec in Montgomery County?
right. Honestly, I don't think that would be that influential. And we have a hard time getting a voice in Southern Maryland, more or less Charles County. So I don't think having a county exec, if you could call yourself commissioner president, commissioner, delegate for that matter. And it's hard down here to get that voice. I don't think that would make that drastic of a difference to name our sitting commissioner president, let her say she's a county exec. It is what it is. We're fighting for our recognition on a daily basis. So I don't know, changing the name, even if there's more power, what it's going to make that kind of difference. He's Montgomery County, yeah.
Yeah, you need 600,000 more
Right,
residents.
swing a really big stick when you're up there, right. There you
Big
go.
budget. There you go.
Okay, let's go around the table. Anybody have any specific points that they wanted to cover?
Just to follow up on your last point, that you got the impression, maybe as you talk to people, that as you go to, if you went to a different form of government and a larger and more people involved, are there disclosure issues, transparency, ethics? Would you be in favor, if it's appropriate, that the charter board write about ethics, that maybe we expand more of a structured system like the state has done over the last 15 or 20 years, as far as what your filings are, what's online, what's not online, what you can do, what you can't do?
Sure. Now, within,
That
I guess,
type of stuff.
cost prohibitive reason, yes. As well as, even if, I know in the federal system, I don't know if this applies to counties. I'm trying to remember. I know a law was passed about being a felon or getting convicted of a crime while in office. Was that applied statewide? I don't think it can apply to counties.
I don't believe it.
So we might want to write that in there too, that if you've been indicted of a felony or a misdemeanor that calls into question your truth or veracity, at least explain it. Something, bring these things out, at least, something. I think that the ethics would be a nice thing, because I think it's also a calming salve for people who may be questioning. They're just the fear of the unknown. So, and also when you look where we live around, you're seeing up north and like, we don't want that. I think that would be actually a very good idea for a multitude of reasons.
Well, I don't mean to sound like a defense attorney for a minute.
Everybody has rights.
Everybody does have rights, and it seems to me that if we were to put something in there that if someone was indicted, they had to respond publicly.
No, no,
No, I didn't mean that. I
No, no, we're talking
I
about
was getting the
convictions.
impression
Well,
that as
I'm
we...
sorry, okay, convictions, I have no problem.
I'm
with.
talking
I was
about
getting the
convictions.
impression
Yeah.
that maybe he had gotten from folks the concern that as government grows, and
Yes.
the more people you get involved, we have a fairly lackadaisical ethics. I mean, most small counties do.
Right.
But the state is now, we've spent 15 years revamping everything. And so, is it time, would it be time, is this a correct opportunity to then make it more of a structured part of
Do you
the elected
consider
process?
what the state requires of you to be unduly burdensome?
No, it's weird to have you do emails where somebody's looking into your stuff to
Yeah,
see what comes
it's all out
wrong.
there.
It's all out
It's
there,
all
but
there.
it is what it is. I'm not
And it
that,
stays out there.
Yeah, it stays out there. But I think that would be a very calming effect. I'm not talking about indictments or charges, or I'm talking about convictions.
Processes.
And again, the prosecutions.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Any other questions of Delegate Wilson? Okay.
Yeah, I have.
sir.
Excuse me. Just a couple of things. What are your feelings about having a recall provision in the charter for, let's say, for the executive?
I'm fine with that. I just would we narrow it to just the executive? No, I mean
The general concept, though.
the general. I have no problem at all. And again, excuse my naivete. I didn't think about that. That's a great idea. I have no problem with putting the citizens at ease that they have some control of what happens. Yeah, I think a recall provision is fine. Now, specifics, no idea. But the idea sounds good.
So they can't be recalled now.
That's what I was wondering.
Can they, Barbara?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. I apologize.
Can a commissioner be recalled?
No,
No,
there's
not
no
right now.
Okay, so yeah, I think a recall provision is fine.
Are you familiar with 66B, the zoning and the land use? Okay.
Mildly.
Now, you were just recently, along with your cohorts up at the community college for your legislative session.
Yes.
About a week ago. There's been a lot of discussion about the difference between code and charter in terms of how much legislation we can handle locally.
Right.
And the reverse side is how less goes up to the state.
Correct.
Do you envision any less of a legislative load going up to the state from the county if we go charter, or do you think it's going to be about the same?
I'm sure it'll be about the same.
Be about the
That's
same.
not really for me, that wasn't the driving force, because I read that, that it releases the burden from, Annapolis, because the counties can make these decisions. But me, the benefit is the counties can make these decisions. Not that I don't have to do as much work or that it's clogging the system. We have 2,400 bills in, a session going through. I think that, that we should be able to take care of it here instead of asking permission from Annapolis, then as much as possible.
So you don't see the
No, I don't see it as a
legislative load
drastic
change.
change. I don't see that as a
That's
huge benefit or detriment.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a, yeah.
Okay. Maybe you touched on this, but in terms of a tax cap and a debt limit cap,
Yes.
I think you touched on one of them, but
I do believe that we should put something in place. And again, I don't want to step too far in a territory that I'm not that familiar with.
Right.
Just as this is more speaking as a common person, that I do believe that, yes, that we should have both a tax cap and a debt cap in place for what's necessary.
and also some counties have provisions where there's a referendum on the amount of debt that a county can incur.
Right.
Where you have to actually go to the people
That's correct.
before you can incur debt at
And that-
above a certain level.
That's the cap I'm talking about, where anything higher than that, you have to take it to referendum.
And is that like under a charter? I think it's 15%, right? Is it the charter? Is it 15% under the charter?
I don't recall right now.
Okay.
Can I just because we're on.
We'll
TV.
get right back to you. Let's take care of this.
Oh,
first.
I'm sorry. I thought it.
That's it?
No, I don't want to take
Oh.
up everything.
Did you have something, Dan?
Just for television, I want to clarify this. Matthew asked about tax cap and debt cap.
Yes.
CT, and you said you were for both. Traditionally, I think of a tax cap like Prince George's and Wycomico and Anne Arundel have, like a trim that a lot of counties over the last 10 or 15, 20 years have had a hard time struggling operating under. Did you?
But there is an out even for those. Don't they have an out? Is it by referendum? Is that the only way they can get out from under the trim?
Yeah, but you know the argument in the state government coffers the last 5 or 6 years is that the other jurisdictions are getting very tired of making up for those jurisdictions that can't cover some of their costs when the rest of the jurisdictions raise revenue to meet their demands. So I just wanted to make sure, because that's something that would be on record for you, and I just want to make sure that there's a difference between tax cap and a debt cap.
And there is.
Debt affordability. So-
Most assuredly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if there was any last item that you wanted to close with, I think you've answered all our questions.
Again, I appreciate the time and the effort you guys are taking, and I know that you guys are going to produce something that I think that our citizens will be happy with, and it's just out to explain to them there's no fear in something new. Something new can be much better if drafted correctly. So I appreciate all the help.
Thanks very much for your time.